The first thing I must do is to give the apologies of Dawn Butler, the Member of Parliament for Brent Central, who was very sorry that she couldn't be with you this afternoon. She was, of course, at the service itself, but she asked me to give her apologies. The second thing I have to do, Mr. President, is to disagree with you, actually, Mr. General Secretary, because you said that Tamu Samaj was a non-profitable organization. No. It may be a non-profit organization, a not-for-profit organization, but it is one of the most profitable organizations I know. What you achieve is to the huge benefit of this community. And I don't by that mean simply the Nepalese community. I mean the whole community. And I think, Geraldine, I'm sure you would agree with me that since your involvement in the Remembrance Day ceremonies, they have grown and grown and grown. And that's very much partly down to the way in which you have embraced them, partly down to the way in which you've welcomed all of us here. But it's really been heartwarming to see today how many different scout troops, how many different police cadets. We didn't used to have all of those young people there. And this is Kim as our new chief executive, and we really welcome you to be part of this family today. But you won't appreciate that 10, 15 years ago, we'd got to be quite a skinny bunch of people. And I don't just mean round the waist. I mean, you've certainly sorted us round the waist. We're a much less skinny bunch of people these days with all the good food that you give us. And please, let's say a big thank you to the chefs and the cooks that prepared this meal. But really, your contribution to this community, I think, ranks you as one of the very most profitable organizations that we have in Brent. You've led, you have engaged, you have been constantly seeing what more you can do to make this community of Brent work. And, you know, today is a day of remembrance, but it's also a day when I think most of us have been looking around the world and wondering how it is that we allow ourselves constantly to be in conflict once again. And when we're talking about conflict, we're not just talking about Russia and Ukraine, we're not just talking about Israel and Palestine. We look at what's going on in the Horn of Africa, we look at what's going on in Yemen, we look at what's going on in Syria. There are so many areas in which human beings are fighting each other. And we have to at some point say, what is wrong with the international order that conflict seems to be so normalized? And conflict can sometimes bring out the very best in us. And that's what we have been celebrating today. That self-sacrifice, that sense of willing to give all for one's community. But we shouldn't let those things that we celebrate out of conflict blind us to the fact that conflict itself is something that we should not have, that we need to resolve. And this week is going to be a particularly hard week, certainly for Dawn and myself. There will be debates in the House of Commons about the Palestine-Israel conflict. There'll be debates about ceasefire. I think as a politician, we have an obligation to try and chart a path forward. And Mason, you were absolutely right when you referred to Carol's very moving sermon this morning in St. John's Church, because she spoke of that that decision that we had to make, the decision that in Coventry, the Dean of Coventry Cathedral had to make after the bombing of that cathedral. And she spoke of the choice that had to be made between revenge and hope. And that was the symbol of the cross of nails from Coventry Cathedral, which has spread all around the world, that message of peace, that message of hope, that message of reconciliation. And as a former Northern Ireland minister, I know only too well that you have to speak with those that you fundamentally disagree with. Because peace does not come from the barrel of a gun. Peace comes through dialogue. And all conflicts, all wars, ultimately are resolved by people who fundamentally disagree with each other, talking to one another. So it's a difficult time. It's a very difficult time when we're thinking not only of those who have made such a sacrifice for our community, for our country, and indeed for the world in the past. And it takes away not one jot from all that they have sacrificed if we say that what we need to do is we need to be peacemakers and bringers of hope. But you have been bringers of hope in this community. And so I want to just finish by thanking you for what you do for the community, thanking you for the way in which you host us and bring us together every year and in between times. It's a wonderful organization, and I will certainly be kicking the leader of the council under the table to talk about the renewal of your lease on the building. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Right Honourable MP.